My guest today, Lori Montry, is a somatic healing practitioner and the author of You're Not the Problem. She's the creator of the Freedom Formula, which is a nervous system-based roadmap for sustainable behavior changes. She helps people who feel stuck in stress, overwhelm, or self-sabotage understand the survival patterns driving their choices so they can build safety, capacity, and clarity needed to take aligned action in every area of their lives. She draws on her Harvard Law education to translate complex concepts like trauma, stress physiology, and nervous system science into practical, immediately usable tools. Her work is anchored in the belief that coping behaviors, emotional eating, overthinking, overachieving, people-pleasing, are not personal failures, but intelligent adaptations the body creates for protection. Welcome to my realm. I'm Tami Jorden, and this is Butterfly Days, the podcast that proves you're not past your prime, you're living in it right now, because women don't have expiration dates. Butterfly Days is a celebration of the extraordinary potential of Gen X and Boomer women. Throughout history, women have shared wisdom to uplift and empower one another, and you're about to learn hard-earned wisdom and best-kept secrets from interesting, inspiring women. So if you're ready to embrace your butterfly season with confidence, find joy in the present, and create a legacy that matters, you're in the right place. No more holding back. Let's spread our wings now. Here we go. Welcome to my realm. This is Tami Jorden, and you're listening to Butterfly Days. Today, my guest, Lori Montry, is going to talk to us in such an inspired and encouraging way. I am so excited for you to hear some of her ideas about why we fail when we're trying to accomplish goals. Like, why do we keep sliding back down when we're trying to get something done? And Lori is a somatic healing practitioner. She has a book just about to come out called You're Not the Problem. And that's kind of where we're going to start. Is I wanted to ask her, why did you write the book?
So many reasons. And it's been a work in progress for probably at least 10 years. And I've started some things and they went off on tangents and got set aside and this and that. And I'm so glad the book waited for me until I was really ready, until I had kind of the right ingredients to put in in these pages. And, I wrote the book to share the kind of what I have discovered, not only in my own life, but after years of practicing, finding those patterns that just kept coming out and realizing, wow, we're all telling the same story. We're telling the story of how we as humans adapted to our environment and to our circumstances, and how when we build a life based on adaptations instead of our authenticity and our truths, we feel that we are out of alignment, and we build conditions that don't suit us and that leave us feeling unfulfilled, reaching for something that we hope will fill us, but not finding it.
Yeah, I love that. Do you think, because I have this theory, so I'm wondering if, what you think in regard to it. Do you think that a lot of the adaptations that we have at this point are, and I'm talking women 45, 50 and older, do you think that a lot of our adaptations came in when we were much younger, maybe even too young to really perhaps make the wisest choice for the adaptation? And that's why by this point in life, it's begun to surface that they're not serving us any longer.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Adapting is something that we'll do regardless of our age. But
Yes.
when we are in those very young formative years, our brain actually works differently. That is its job, before the age of they say around 8. We are just 100% trying to figure out what's going on in this world.
Yeah.
How do I make sense of my experiences? And that's the full-time job, more or less, of the brain. And so, yes, most of our adaptations, at least begun, right? And then they
Hmm.
were built on throughout
Sure.
throughout our entire lives. But certainly, it doesn't have to be limited to that time. But most of them are rooted there. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And then,
Well, I mean, even your teens and early 20 years, I think as you were going through things, you thought, oh, this is what the world is now. So I need to do this.
yeah,
But then by the time you get to your certainly over 50, it begins to dawn on you, this is, I'm not happy. This is not comfortable. I'm not getting the things I want to be accomplished, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And that was me, 100%. And so many other people.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes
You're not alone in that.
no, no, and sometimes we start to feel it earlier, but we
Hmm.
might be so busy and so engaged, in our lives that we can't even stop to look at it. In fact, it might feel
Yeah.
scary to even
Yeah.
recognize that I might be living a life that is not in alignment with my truth. Um,
Hmm.
and so sometimes we wait. But it doesn't matter how long we wait, we can still find our
Hmm.
way back. And it's still worth it. I think a lot of people will
Hmm.
say, well, I have clients in their 70s thinking to themselves, it's probably too late. What's the point? Say no.
Go, girl.
One day of freedom is worth whatever you have to put in to get there.
Yeah.
And I believe that.
No, that's so true because you're alive until you're not.
Mm,
And if you are alive, then why not have a better day? Why not feel better,
yeah.
feel more fulfilled? I love that. So what's interesting is when I think about what we're talking about in adaptations, etc., but draw the line for me between I've been trying to not eat chips at 9 p.m. and overeating or people pleasing or any of the other behaviors that what all of us have things where like I'm gonna get better at that this year. I'm not gonna set the yearly I can't
Resolution.
resolutions.
Yeah.
I won't do resolutions, but I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna start yoga. But then we find that we're not doing it, and I think you address this in a really brilliant way. Can you draw the line between maladaptive choices and how on earth they would impact that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we can go deep here. So let's start just kind of by
Yes.
identifying that whatever your behavior is, and that includes behaviors that you love about yourself, right?
Mm.
And but more especially the behaviors that you don't love, the things that you want to change, the habits, the things that you don't want to be doing, and the things that you want to be doing but aren't, right? It,
Mhm.
it applies both ways. And when you look at that, our inclination is to go after the behavior, to not do the thing or to do the thing, and to look at it
Mhm.
from that level, right?
Yeah.
But if we look at any of the desired behaviors that we want, and we understand why we are doing them or not doing them, like you said, the chips, okay, this year I'm gonna steer clear of hyper processed foods, or I'm going to stop drinking alcohol or stop drinking it regularly or whatever it is. And then you find
Whatever, right.
yourself doing it. And it is not a matter of willpower. That behavior,
Mic drop.
right?
What?
Yeah, I know. And probably everyone's like, no, I don't, what are you saying? I can't,
Lori, we've all been taught that, so it must be right. The
it
internet
must
says
be.
it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a matter of willpower. That behavior is meeting a need. And while it may be meeting a need maladaptively, it is still meeting a need. And if we continue to go after the behavior and don't actually meet the need, we're going to fail every single time. And then those failures become evidence. The brain takes them and says, yep, see, we can't be successful at this. It is really too hard. I just can't, get my shit together, or whatever the story is that you wanna use.
Mhm.
And we waste so much time there. Oh my goodness. We waste all of our time and energy. We're putting everything into how can I change myself, fix myself, instead of what might I be needing? What is this all about?
Yes.
And it's an adaptation.
So I love this. So maybe the direct line here is that if you are eating more than are thinking that you want to, or eating at times when you decided you didn't want to, or eating things you didn't want to eat,
Mhm.
or drinking when didn't want to, or people pleasing when you kicked yourself 50,000 times. What you're saying is those things, when you do those things, there's some kind of a need. You're getting some kind of hit off of it. Some kind of need is being fulfilled. So if we take a step back and think of, wait, what is this actually making feel better? Then we could address the need. So instead of like the picture I have is like stop mowing over the dandelion to get rid of it, but go to the root and get it out.
Precisely. Yes, that is if we could think of it that way, like getting it at the root, right? Because trying to, mowing over it, especially a dandelion, it's grown back in 2 or 3 days, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you're
And you
constantly
gonna get
spending.
more.
Absolutely. So you're constantly spending your time, in that in energy and, life force
Mm-hmm.
trying to fight against yourself.
Yeah.
And that's not a life, and when we speak about food, particularly because that's something that first of all is very common, but it really applies to everything, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's the people pleasing, it's the whatever, and we learned how to do this. Everything makes sense, right? All of your
Yeah.
behaviors, all of your challenges, the way you think, the way your perceived shortcomings, they all make perfect sense. And when
Mm-hmm.
we can trace them back and understand where they came from and
Mm-hmm.
what purpose they serve, then we can put our
Mm-hmm.
time and energy in the back office here and
Right.
be able to actually do the things that
That
provide the
we want.
conditions for us to be
So
able to switch
so
shift.
if we could meet the need that's driving the desire for chips at 9 p.m., a bag, which we said we were going to eat two, and now it's empty.
Mhm.
Tragically empty. So if we could meet the need that's causing us to want the chips,
Mhm.
we cut it off at the pass.
Yes, and there's a whole nother layer to it. Yes, we
Okay.
want to be able to meet the need, and that is really important, and that will get you really far. But there's actually another level even underneath that. And that is where my concept and my understanding of our adaptations come in. And I keep
Okay.
finding myself wanting to bring a little more context, to bring a story to this
Hmm.
conversation because
Yes, please.
we're kind of dancing around these concepts. But my own life is the very things that we're talking about in action, right?
Okay.
So I'm not going to go into a lot of the detail. I do write about it extensively in the introduction to my book because it's very relevant in how I built my life based on my early experiences. But most notably, I was the sixth out of seven children. So when I got into my home, when I came along, it was already very busy, full, overwhelmed, even. And my
Yeah.
mother, who was doing her best, certainly, but she came from her own traumatic background. And by the time I came along, she was literally exacerbated by life, like just exhausted. And I felt that. And I knew
Yeah.
that. I was another butt to wipe, another mouth to feed. And I really, very early on, developed the belief that I made life harder instead of better. And that was just something that,
Yeah.
we learn these things. We pick up. We are so trained, even as babies, to
Hmm.
read faces and tone and
And all the things.
everything
Yeah.
from our caregivers because our lives depend on it, right?
Hmm.
And then right around age 4, I was sexually abused for a period of time. My abuser said, "This is your fault. Do not tell anyone. You will get in big trouble." So I didn't really feel like I had anyone to tell anyway, but with that,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, there's no source of safety for me outside of this. I need to figure this out. And so I did
Hmm.
what all of us do. I adapted, right?
Hmm.
adapted for my experiences in my environment. And I
Yeah.
adapted in many ways. And I really want to point out here that we talk about, okay, those were rough circumstances, but this
Yeah.
happens, and I want to say this now so that people aren't being like, oh, well, she has a reason for her adaptations. I don't. Adaptations are not something we choose. It's just something we do as humans, right? I live in Denver,
Mhm.
Colorado, and I live at 5,280 feet above sea level. So my body adapted by generating more red blood cells so that
Mm.
efficient at moving oxygen around my body because oxygen is
A big deal.
yeah, exactly. So my body adapted, right? It's not something we choose to do. And
Mm.
I adapted to that set of circumstances, but all of our listeners adapted as well to their set of circumstances, whether they can relate to some of the things that were, at play for me, whether they, things as simple as they were praised often for the
Mhm.
great things they did, but never told that they were valuable for just for being who they
Yeah.
were, right? And that's not
Mhm.
something people weren't trying to do anything wrong, but
No.
it can set up the belief system like I'm only valuable when I do the extraordinary. And then
Mhm.
I have to do the extraordinary today and today and today, right? It could be not being invited.
Groundhog Day.
Exactly. It can be not being invited to sit at the cool kids table, right?
Yeah.
All of these kind of everyday things create adaptations. So I really
Yeah.
want that to be understood. But in my life, these conditions created certain adaptations for me. Adaptations in the
Right.
way I thought, right? I believed the world's not safe. I believed I was broken and that I was the problem.
Mhm.
I thought that the reason why I wasn't loved and people did bad things to me was because of my fundamental flaws, right?
Right.
So, and that was protective because if it's
Mhm.
me, then I have the power, right, to change the situation
Mhm.
and thereby
Sure.
create a better environment for myself. I developed all kinds of different belief systems, but I also developed patterns in my nervous system. So I became hypervigilant, right? What's going on? Where's the danger coming from next?
Yeah.
Um, and a whole host
Which
of
was a good adaptation at the time.
absolutely. They're all brilliant. They're
Mhm.
really, really brilliant. Specifically helped me survive in those moments. And thank
Mhm.
goodness for them, right?
Yeah.
The other adaptation, and there were certainly others, but was I needed something to help me through this situation. So I found food. Food became
Mm.
my comforter, my resource. It became the thing that helped me quiet what was going on inside. It was something I
Yeah.
could ask for, and actually didn't have to ask for, and get my needs met without
Mm.
facing kind of the consequences of burdening someone. Right. So food
Yeah.
became
Yeah.
my best friend,
Mhm.
which over a very short period of time caused me to become overweight and
Mm.
that triggered my mom's fears around her own body. And I started my first diet taken to the doctor. It started my first diet at 6. So that
6. Oh.
put me on, yeah, an interesting path where I was really at battle with my body for a number of reasons from
From
toddlerhood,
so
right?
young. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I developed these adaptations, which made sense at the time, but they created a life, right? We go on to build our lives around these adaptations, and they get more solidified. And
Mhm.
those voices that came from outside that we use to form these adaptations then become our own. And
Mhm.
we are, building lives that are based on, for me, that looked like, how do I fix this mess that I am? How do I become, something better than this just, terrible mix of things that I am? And that was what I built my life around. How can I fix myself? How can I become better?
Yeah.
And I made every decision from that lens.
Yeah.
I was an athlete. I graduated college as a 4.0 student. I went to the Harvard
Mm.
Law School. I got married. I didn't just have kids. I had 6 children, and I didn't just raise them. I homeschooled them while, practicing part-time and doing all the things. And
Girl.
yeah, and all in an effort to fix me. And the whole time, Tami, this is the hardest and saddest part. The whole time, writing in my journal, when am I going to get my shit together? Why am I such a loser? I came upon a journal entry that said I would trade places. It was after a morning after one of my binges, and
Mm.
just the self-hatred, and it said I would trade places with a serial killer on death row because I felt like they were better than me. I was so debased and so in need of fixing, um,
Yeah.
because that was my adaptation. My adaptation
Yeah.
was my way to happiness was fixing myself. And I didn't have
Mhm.
any other way of thinking. How could I experience anything different? The only path
Yeah.
I had ever known was fix
Yeah.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I built this
I
life.
am not good
I
enough.
am not good enough. Yeah,
Baseline, right?
exactly, exactly. So I would try so hard to, a lot of my effort was focused on my relationship with food and to stop doing the thing that I was doing, right?
Yeah.
But it was filling such an important need. But I wasn't focused on the need or why I was doing this. I mean, I already knew why I was doing this. It was because I'm a loser with no willpower
Right.
and I have no discipline,
Right.
which wasn't true because I had all these other
Yeah.
areas in my life. Wow. But couldn't see that, right? The only thing
Right.
I could see is why do I keep doing the thing that I say I'm not going to do? And
Wow.
so by understanding where this came from, what purpose it was serving,
Mhm.
I could get to the point after, through the process that I take the reader through, I could
Mhm.
understand why I was doing that. And then the need for it fell away. I wasn't standing in that moment fighting myself. How am I going to say
Yeah.
no to the chips? Now it doesn't occur to me. Chips
Right.
don't chips don't help me. They don't give
Right.
me anything because I have what I need. They were a great substitute when I didn't know. But now that I know. So it's
Now I know.
beyond just meeting the need in the moment because I don't want for anybody to be in that moment over and
Mhm.
over and over again. Um,
Yeah.
we can actually get rid of those moments.
Yeah.
And that's the
That's
powerful.
really beautiful. So what is the tipping point for Lori to begin to understand how to find the path to her own power and to begin to feel safe and love Lori? Yeah,
Yeah,
you're like, really? Do you have an hour and a half? But
exactly. Yeah.
do you know what I'm saying? What I'm asking?
Yeah. And I think, there wasn't like a moment, there wasn't an aha, but there was a gradual openness and curiosity. And it
Mm,
started with the question, I had achieved so much of the things. And so it came, certainly with a little bit more wisdom and age, right? In my late 30s, I
yeah.
started to ask that question, like, wait a minute. None of these things that I'm achieving or accomplishing are making me feel any better. You know, my relationship is not authentic. My health is
Mm,
getting worse. I have all these weird things happening, hives and candida overgrowth and this and that and chronic
mm-hmm.
pain and like all of these things are getting worse. What if the answer to all of my problems is not fixing myself and not becoming more accomplished or disciplined or whatever? What if it's something else? And that was
Mm,
actually a very scary question to ask
yeah.
because there was no answer at that point. So it's like being out there, it's kind of like being untethered in space, Where do
Mm-hmm.
I, at least with my discipline, right? I could make the plan and it feels so good
Yeah.
to make that plan and say, okay, here's how you're going to achieve worthiness today.
Yeah.
So to approach that question was actually scary,
Yeah. Terrifying.
but it
But you
was
know
the
what?
starting point.
It's so brave of you because until we ask the question, we can't get to relief. We just can't.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know the answer. You just have to know honestly that you have the question, is there something that could help me? That's
Yeah,
simple.
exactly, exactly. And
That's a
that's
good
when I
starting place. Yeah.
more or less, became a student again, this time not in the law
Wow.
library, but in the world
Yeah.
of, neuroscience, behavior change, trauma, so all things somatic. And
Mm-hmm.
what I learned there starting to, piece it together from all these different modalities, because the path for me didn't exist. And so I really had to pull from a lot of different places to create it because there was so much nervous system, there was so much neurobiology and our thought systems, right? And all of these different pieces that had to come together for me to really allow me to see my adaptations and then learn how to adapt again from that adapted self into what I call the expansive self. The expansive
Mm.
self who knows who you really are and
Mm-hmm.
is well regulated and capable and resourced. And from there, nothing is not possible for you, right? And you start building your
Mm.
life instead of based on who you thought you needed to be, you start
Yes,
building it
yes.
on who you really are and what
Mm-hmm.
feels good to you. And until that point, I hadn't even thought to ask the question.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of us, because we're not yet in an authentic place, what do you want? I have no freaking idea.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
definitely would have said that in my early 50s. I don't know,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah, yeah,
you don't even have access to that. Well,
exactly.
so you're talking about a regulated nervous system, and I love hearing that. But I'm wondering, okay, because you felt unsafe because of some of your earlier life experiences and you developed, um, I'm going to say a mindset, but that might not be the right word, but you
Yeah.
developed a framework that the
Hmm.
world is not a safe place, etc. So clearly, from a nervous system point of view, you're operating on at least, what would you say, DEFCON 3 there at all times. How does that impact you, and how do you realize it and get out of it back to DEFCON 5, which I guess is the lowest level?
Yeah. And it's such a great question because you said, how do you recognize it? And I think that's really important because we become so normalized to
Yes.
the way we feel, the way we see things. We just
Yeah.
think that's reality. And we don't even know that there could be something different. And that was certainly my experience because having developed so much of this, even before four, right? Like I said, I knew from day one, like, this isn't necessarily there's not safety here, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so how do we know? And so much of this is that education piece first,
Yeah.
understanding how nervous systems work, you know?
Mhm.
There's a lot of information, especially now, which I'm really excited about, where we're having conversations about nervous systems and about, different tools and things like that. But really, there is no nervous system. We don't hack the nervous system, and we don't tell it how to behave. We learn about it and understand it, and then we respond to it and communicate with it. And so that's the first step because until we can get curious about it, right? We're not trying to train our nervous system. We're trying to use our nervous system as a great compass and and
Mm.
and
You don't
wisdom.
wanna turn it off. You just want it to be authentic, to operate within your authenticity of what's
Yes.
best for you.
Yes. And to use it to
Oh.
figure out how do I create a life of safety? Not,
Yeah.
hey, nervous system, calm down. Well,
Yeah.
if the environment in which you live
Not
is full of
helpful.
threats, why would that make sense? And you're not going to be effective, not in any long-term sense.
Mm.
So how do
Mm.
we do it? We learn about the nervous system, and there's really three pillars in this first foundational piece. And so I like to think of, and that's what the book is about. It's about our foundation. And I
Mhm.
like to think of the foundation just like we would this big, beautiful mansion that we're building, which is our life, right? If we're going to build something beautiful, we need
Mhm.
a solid foundation for it.
Yep.
We need a basement, right, to build
Yeah.
on. And when we go after our behavior, without a solid foundation, it's like we're trying to build a second floor balcony without the foundation underneath. It's going to crumble
Oh,
again and again and again.
that makes a lot of sense.
It does. Yeah. And so our foundation is built of three things. It's safety,
Okay.
which is felt in the body, and that's really where the well-regulated nervous system comes in. Safety
Okay.
in your system,
Okay.
capacity, right? You have to have capacity. If your life cannot hold your life, your mind, your body, it can't hold one more thing. Why are you going
Mm-hmm.
to tell it to start your new workout regime or your new diet plan on Monday? There's no room for that,
If
right?
you're already at
Room.
capacity, you
You're
can't add another should on it.
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you're overwhelmed already, adding this on sounds like it'll be great, but it's
Yeah.
really just one more overwhelmed problem for the nervous system to manage. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly, which digs the problem even deeper, right? That's like
Yeah.
you're just piling on. Now you've created a essentially an impossible scenario for yourself. It's kind
Yeah.
of like, and I tell people all the time, it's like we're these little seeds, right? And we really want to bloom and grow and germinate and do all the things. But what we do is we like toss ourselves into a little clay pot, put on a tablespoon of sand, put
Mm-hmm.
ourselves in the closet, and then we're like, "Come on, grow. What's going on?
Grow.
Why are you not this big beautiful
What's the
plant
matter
already?"
with me? Yeah.
Right? Don't have the conditions, right? And then the third
Yeah.
piece of this foundation is energy. And when I talk about energy, I mean literally energy, ATP on a cellular level. Because having lived
Wow.
in years of stress,
Mm-hmm.
overwhelm, your cells switched over from thriving and from energy production to protection. And that's a very different state.
Wow.
And so if you don't have the energy to do something, you think that it's a willpower or a mindset problem, but
Right.
it's your body saying no. And
You just don't even have gas in the tank for it.
exactly. Yeah. But you need to drive to the gas station. So there's the paradox,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about the energy. So it's kind of the whole body, right? Because this last piece, the energy piece, is how do we take care of and restore energy to the body? What does
Yeah,
it
how can I
do?
calm my, body?
And give it the correct sleep, and we're talking about the nourishment, we're talking about the toxic load, we're talking about the right kind of movement, and it's not
Mm,
intensity. And so
mhm.
we're talking about all the things that will help your cells switch over from what's known as cell danger response back into producing energy so that you can use it along with your capacity and your regulated nervous system to now readapt and do the things that are actually going to allow you to find success, find the
Yeah.
authentic goals, and be able to follow through. Because there's nothing more disheartening than being constantly falling short.
Yeah. God dang. I mean, that just takes the wind out of your sails,
Absolutely. To the
because
point where you
after a
just
few
want to
times of that,
hmm
you're setting a pattern of that's telling you you're not capable or it's
Yeah.
impossible. It's the hopelessness begins, and you think you're
Yes.
seeing validation of that when that may not be true.
Totally. You just haven't had the conditions you needed. You had that tablespoon of sand. You're in the dark closet. Let's get you the rich soil and the
Mm,
water and the sunlight and watch and see what you can do.
yeah, that's beautiful. So, nervous system, and I keep thinking, I know peripherally about this, so I'm gonna mess it up, and you can fix it. You can set me straight here. So we know now that a lot of our nervous system is in the gut as well as the brain, and there's that. Is it the
Yeah, yeah.
not
The vagus
vasovagal, but the
nerve.
vagal nervous system?
Mhm.
Can you speak a little bit to that for somebody who may not be familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have so much more knowledge about our nervous system than we ever had before, and it's
Mm-hmm.
incredible to understand some of the structures and all of that. But basically, what I think is most useful for people to understand is that we have three primary states of our nervous system. And the way I describe it, and I've been working with it for a while, is like a graduated cylinder. And I've got one here. I know the audience can't see it, but
Oh, I
if you
love this.
remember those
Yeah.
cylinders that we used in high school chemistry class, right? They're just
Yep.
these um, long tubes, and they have the
Yep.
number 0 to 10 running up the side.
Yep.
And our nervous
For
system
capacity.
is you can think of just like this cylinder. So when we're in the lower ranges of this cylinder, say 1 to 3, we're in
Mm-hmm.
what's called the ventral vagal state or parasympathetic. I call it home base because that's where
Okay.
we want to be the vast majority of the time, where we
Oh,
were designed to live,
right.
and where your body's always trying to return to. So that's home base. And that's where you have the greatest access to that expansive self that I was talking
And
about.
that's that calmer,
Mhm.
not amped up uh,
Yeah.
uh place to be. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the place, and you might not be very familiar with that place. I didn't even know what that place was.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I hadn't touched
I'm
into that
thinking a lot of us
uh,
didn't
for
even
sure.
realize because it's been so very long
Yep.
since we have, or maybe if we ever felt
Yes.
safe, comfortable, and I'm going to go one step further and say there's a worthiness component in the way that
Mm,
you feel.
mm,
Like it's okay that I'm here and I'm okay that I am the way that I am here.
yeah. Yeah. I like that you went there. I also like that you said, it may be something that we've never experienced before.
Yeah.
Because I think that's true, and that was certainly the case for me.
Yeah.
So as you move up the cylinder in that, say, 4 or 5 range, that's where
Mhm.
you're touching into the sympathetic energy or the sympathetic range. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes we hear, oh, sympathetic and stress. But really, that 4 or 5, like, that's an awesome place to be for
Mm.
play. For right now, when we're engaging and we're wanting to kind of be on for a meeting or for that kind
Mhm.
of thing, or like I said,
Creativity.
for fun,
Yeah.
creativity, yeah. So 4 or 5 is a nice place to be. Not that we necessarily wanna be on all the time, but it's a
Right.
great place to touch into when it's appropriate and useful.
Yeah.
And then we move up 6, 7, that's where we start to get in that more frantic, stressed out, we at the higher range where we might be feeling some panic. We might be
Mhm.
noticing things in our body because that's where, a lot of extra adrenaline and cortisol and the stress hormones are higher,
Mhm.
right? We might kinda shut down. We'd be starting to go into survival mode. Um,
Mhm.
and then above 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, flowing over, those are the states of overwhelm
Yeah.
and the freeze response where, and that's again, it's a range. So it's not the same for everybody, but that's where, we feel like, man, I get up every morning, I got to put this 500-pound backpack on my back and
Yeah.
or I haven't been able to get off the couch. Or,
Mhm.
I'm going through the motions like I'm moving through molasses,
Yeah.
disconnected,
Living for the
dissociated.
weekend.
Yeah, yeah. And in all of those, 6 and above, where our bodies are paying the price. We're
Yeah.
noticing some of the um, chronic illnesses and aches and pains and all
Mhm.
kinds of things, digestion issues, because as you said, our our digestive system is very linked to our nervous system. And
Yeah.
so when you understand this and have a simple model for relating to your nervous system, you start to see where you are
Mm.
on the spectrum and then understanding what what influences your nervous system. Then you get to start to look at things and again, so your nervous system is like that wise compass, right? If you're up in the 8, 9, 10 overflowing um,
Mhm.
you know, um, levels every day, there's something, going on in your life, and it's your thoughts, it's your circumstances, it's your relationship, it's everything,
It's
right?
everything. It's
Yeah.
almost like you're saying that you have so many browser windows open at those real higher
Yeah.
ranges that it's eating up your operating system. You know what I mean? So
100%.
just to
Yeah.
keep all this going.
Yes. Yes. So imagine, right? Imagine being that. And then I love you said operating system because that's what it is, right? We're going through life based on and using the operating system that we have. And
Mm.
we're not going to be able to, if we're a computer that's only been programmed with numbers, and I come to and ask this computer to give me a Shakespearean sonnet, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if life has gotten you to the point that you are trying to accomplish things, or there's more that you want to do or be or understand about yourself, and you're finding that you're roadblocked, probably a good moment to say, you know what it is? I am, I'm hyperstimulated. I'm at capacity. I'm overwhelmed. And
Yes.
if I'm overwhelmed, what could I begin to look at or do that would reduce, close browser windows slowly so that I've got more RAM, ROM. I never did understand the difference between
Yeah.
those.
Don't ask me.
How can I get some more energy back into that primary operating system, by reducing that? Like what sort of things do that? What's the
Yeah.
path there?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say, and this is not popular, but the first thing I'll say is that there really isn't, oh, I'm just going to do this simple thing. And in a
Ah,
week, it's going to be so much better, right? And it's okay if that message is not for everybody, right? That certainly wasn't for me. I can't tell
fair.
you how many times when I would hear something like that, I would say, "Nope, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna try harder," and do that because that is, we're in pain and we want
Yeah,
the solution. We also live in a world where solutions are marketed to us in a
yeah,
very, instantaneous form, 30
yeah.
days to XYZ or order something and have it on my porch in 45 minutes,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that kind of mindset, and that kind of mindset is not going to work here.
Doesn't serve
It
us here.
it doesn't
Okay.
serve at
All
all.
right.
So,
And there's no super simple formula path that we're gonna hear next. But what we are gonna learn is
yeah, yeah. So I just kind of preface that because this is one of those journeys, we'll say, that is more about what you gain from the journey than where you arrive at the end.
okay.
And
Okay. I
so the
like it.
way to think about this is the number one goal here is about learning kind of who you are, what you need, right? And then how to meet that. And that is exactly what we do when we learn how to relate to the nervous system and start to use it as our compass, as our guide here, right? So
Mm-hmm.
much of the information, again, is how to control your nervous system. You don't need to control your nervous system. You need to understand what it's telling you and react and respond to it in a way
Yeah.
that it's the boss, but we have it kind of like, the nuisance that we need to
Yeah.
to fix and control.
Yeah.
But
And instead it is telling us really important things, even
yeah,
if
yeah,
even if they're inaccurate because of the things that we've learned earlier, right? Like
yeah,
the
yeah,
world is not safe. But
but that's what we need to know.
you don't believe that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in that vein, if we can just start from that understanding that I need to be able to hear from my nervous system and respond to it, right? And
Yeah.
if we can agree that that is our starting point,
Mm-hmm.
then we can choose something and start to implement something that gets us a little bit closer to that.
Yeah, because
And
my nervous system is not bad. As a
no,
matter of fact, it's likely the path that's going to take me to where I need to be. It's that healthy relationship with my operating system.
100%. It's going to show you where you need to heal. It's going to show you how you need to, what you need to give yourself, the conditions
Mm,
that you need. It's going to tell you, how much sleep you need. It's going to tell you where your beliefs are creating roadblocks for you.
mm,
It is your wise guide that lives inside you all
mm.
of the time. And instead of ignoring it or making it wrong, we need to learn how to be in relationship with it. And one of the easiest ways to do that is just to start a little, not insignificant, but little practice where you devote yourself to meeting your nervous system every day. And that may be ideally in the morning
Okay.
when before everything starts to come in and
Mm-hmm.
cloud, but to make a little space. Maybe that space is right now 30 seconds or a minute. And that's where
Okay.
many people need to start. And in that time, sitting down with yourself with the intention to maybe check in and see what's going on inside. What are you
Mm-hmm.
noticing? Maybe it's, oh, I feel this knot in my belly,
Mm.
or I feel a lot of tension in my shoulders. Maybe there's a lightness, right? Maybe there's
Mm.
heat, some cold. It can be so many different messages, right? And just being aware of that and making a space for that without judging, without trying to figure out in that moment, what does this mean?
Without making an extra story about the
Yeah,
story on it.
yeah.
So, what I hear you saying is if in the morning, it really tends to help in the morning. So, we're going to start with that. But
Mhm, mhm.
if in the morning you can, even if it's teeny, teeny bit, we don't care, Lego sized steps put together
Yep.
end up taking you a great distance. So, if you can be still, because what I hear you saying is that in the stillness comes the knowing.
Yeah, yeah. In the
It may
stillness.
come slowly, but if you can learn each morning to just be still, you can begin to know more about what your operating system is trying to tell you
Yeah, and what it needs in order
and
to
what
be
it needs.
updated, right? To
Yeah,
to create the life that you want. And that
yeah.
really is, this is the very, very first step. And certainly, I'll also say that when I was first trying to figure all of this out and approaching these questions that I shared with you with curiosity, I
Mhm.
didn't yet think that I was worthy of investing in myself, finding someone to help walk me through some of this. And so I really devoured people's free resources in every
Mm.
way that I could find them. And I said to myself, that's something that I want to do and want to offer. And so I
Yeah.
do have a lot of free resources on the website that kind of give
Mhm.
that the next step or how to take the information that you gather and
Mhm.
move it forward. But the nice thing about this is I'm not giving you some, I created the freedom formula, which is, takes you through the entire process. But the formula is based on you and your information so that you become your own guide
Oh.
as opposed to, I don't know what you need
Yeah.
and there, but you do.
Right.
So
But
how do
you
we
do.
access that? And that's one of the beautiful things that really speaks to people because they've tried so many things and
Mhm.
nothing has worked, right?
But trying all the things is a lot about moving around and that action, 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 and
Yeah.
that's all great.
Mhm.
But what I hear you saying is if you can stop with all the moving around and just come back into a safer, more peaceful space,
Mhm.
you're gonna have room to know some of the wisdom about what would be better for you.
Bam. That's exactly it. Because that's where your expansive self is, right? And that's the self that knows what you want. It
Mm,
knows how to get it, and it has what you need to do the follow through to
yeah.
create.
I feel like that there's a woman right now who's listening to this and she's like, that's great for all of you, but I never know
Mhm.
what's right for me.
Yeah.
I've tried and tried and tried and I just can't. I can hear her voice and
Mhm.
I just can't seem to figure out what's the right thing for me. And I
Mhm.
just want someone to tell me how I figure that out. How do you answer that woman?
Yeah. Yeah, man, that was me 100%. And now I think about it, and now I rely so much on my intuition and my, the signals from inside. So it's amazing to me. I don't know how I survived. It's kind of like if we try for a second to think about the way we used to navigate without GPS, like
Hmm.
if you had an appointment at some random place clear across town and
How
you
did we
didn't know,
get there?
I
I
don't
still don't
know.
know.
I know. Isn't it interesting? But it's like now we're trying to go through life. Our nervous system is our GPS, and
Yeah.
we are, putting in the address, and then we turn the volume all the way down and cover the GPS unit with a blanket. And we're like, okay,
Well,
it's
no wonder you feel lost.
exactly. No
First of
wonder
all,
you feel lost.
because the
Yeah.
very system that would help you is being obscured.
Yeah.
And that's probably what overwhelm does is takes that system offline.
Yeah, yeah, it prevents us from being able to hear it, from uncovering it, turning up the volume and being able to use it. And so I really believe that there is not one person who doesn't have the ability to get tuned back in. And I would tell that woman, like I would tell myself if I could go back and share with her, that's an adaptation. You learned how to stop paying attention. And that makes sense because sometimes, our system is saying run. Our system
Mm,
is saying this is not okay. Say no, fight back. And
yeah,
that's not possible in a lot of
right.
situations. And so we have to turn the volume down because we can't actually follow through. And so what happens is we become, we don't lose the skill, but it becomes very dull.
Hmm.
But it is possible, absolutely, to get tuned
To
back
come back
in.
into your
Yeah,
power. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's just an adapted way right now, but we're
yeah.
plastic. So we can always, and we are always adapting. The question is, are we adapting towards more truth, wholeness, authenticity, or are we anchoring in and solidifying the adaptations that we brought to this moment?
Yep. I love this. You had said, I was going to share this. You had said um, that anxiety, stress, and old survival patterns take up space. And there is little room left for new behaviors, like even positive ones. Overwhelm is not a character flaw. It's a sign that your nervous system has been carrying more than it can hold. Imagine a cup filled to the brim. Every new demand, even those healthy habits, feel like one more drop that sends everything spilling over. Your system responds exactly as it was designed to. It protects you. It pulls you back towards what feels familiar and requires the least amount of energy, even when that familiar place does not reflect what you want. And I think that there are a lot of women listening to this going, yeah, that's what's been happening, and not realizing that result is because of the overwhelm. And you're not bad and you're not incapable
Yeah.
and you're not worthy, but you're also not in your power. And that's going to come back
Mhm.
and be available for you when
Yes.
you stop shooting on yourself, right?
Mhm.
And begin to amp down the hyper state. Find calm again in your body. Is that like, do you recommend like yoga for that? Or are there, I know in Qigong we do these shaking things that calm the body
Yeah.
down. Like, do you have I'm trying to say tips or tricks and it's coming out trips or ticks.
Yeah.
Do you have suggestions for a woman who realizes that she probably is holding a lot of stress and overwhelm? Is there anything that you can do that can calm the body so you give the mind a little bit of space to drop a level? of
Absolutely.
franticness.
There are so many things. And that's
Mm,
one of the things that I do share on the website. But I think the important thing to understand there is that it's nice to build a tool belt, right? Just like a handyman doesn't go to
yes.
every job with just a hammer, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of different things that he's going to come across, and he's going to need a
Yeah.
different tool depending on the situation. And our nervous system is the same. So
Mm.
every situation is not going to be a yoga situation or a breathing situation. And every system is not
There's
going to
no
accept those.
panacea.
Right, right. And that's why we start with a relationship because the nervous system will tell you. So, for example, a lot of people come and they say, oh, I tried meditation or I tried breathing and it didn't work for me. Or breathing gets me
Turns out
more.
breathing, I can't do it.
Yeah, and breathing makes me more anxious or, whatever it is. And that's not a failure. It doesn't mean that tool is not effective. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It means right now, your system is saying, that's not what I need. And, a lot of
Mm.
times this makes sense. It's like if there was a bear chasing us and I run up next to you and I say, oh, Tami, wow, it's spring and these wildflowers are so pretty. Let's sit down and do some breathing and really smell these flowers and admire them. You'd be
Is
like,
this the
what is
moment?
wrong with you? We're going to get eaten if we do that. And sometimes when
Yeah.
we try to force the nervous system, hey, sit down, do this nice calming breathing. And if the nervous
Right.
system is saying, no, that's not
There's a
safe right
bear.
now. There's a bear and it's chasing us. That's why the tools are failing, not because they can't work or
Wow.
that you're failing or anything else. So a tool
Yeah.
can only be effective if it's the right tool for your nervous system in the moment.
I love
So
this.
this is why, so much of, like I said, I'm excited to see more nervous system conversation. But what I don't like is the headlines and things that say 30-second vagus nerve hack to calm your system. Well, okay, try it. Try the hack, see what you notice. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be the end all be all. And if it doesn't work for you, that's just data. Oh,
So
that's
are
not
we
what I
going to
thought.
build a system of
Exactly.
by slowly paying attention to what is causing
Yes, yes.
overwhelm and all the stacked issues, the layers in that, by paying attention to that, are we going to slowly be figuring out what works right now and then adapting to every level to try to, like, as we ease ourselves down, we'll realize, oh, I don't really need to do that anymore. I can now just do simple breathing or like keep developing a constantly modifiable toolkit as to what you need now.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. It might it might be a fun analogy to think of a baby,
Hmm.
and the way babies change so quickly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There are certain things that baby is always going to love. There might be a little a little song or something that's going to work all the
Hmm.
time, right up till, my oldest is 25. There are certain things, that still might work for her. That's
Hmm.
worked since day
Hmm.
one, right? And there may
Yeah.
be some things that, not so much. But what we're always
Outgrew.
doing with babies is we're like, oh, little creature, who are you today? Oh, that's what you need. And now you've grown a little and so it's a ever
Yeah.
evolving. But the real trick here is not, and I don't want anyone to hear that and think, oh my gosh, great. There's no, rhyme or reason to it. But that's actually the goal. And that's why I said this is one of those journeys where the journey itself is
Yeah.
where the value is as opposed to where you end
Yeah.
up. Because when you know yourself and you've become, I'll say, no, you don't have to perfect it, but when you become masterful with your system, that's how
Yeah.
you feel so secure in life,
Yeah.
rooted. And it's where life comes in because we couldn't possibly anticipate what tomorrow is going to bring, let alone, a year from now or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what we're reaching for is not how to calm our system, but how to know our system so that we can get that information. What do you need today? What do you need in this moment? And I have a big tool belt, right? So my tool belt, I don't know, maybe I've got 100 tools in my in my chest here, and I can pull from
Yeah.
the ones that I need and that will that my system is asking for in the day. But it starts from experimentation and curiosity.
Yeah.
I ask, the whole system is built on around a 5 time per day check-in. And these are quick. These are, something that we can do within our day, even if it's, when we take our bathroom breaks or whatever
Mhm.
we need to
Mhm.
do to be paying attention. But
Are
it's
you just
there.
asking yourself, how do I feel right now? Where is there stress somewhere in me? And what does it like? It's in my stomach, it's in my right shoulder, you know? Are you doing those kind of check-ins?
Yeah, so the check-ins build over time. So we don't start with a great big massive check-in. We start with one thing where I ask you, hey, I'm going to teach you a little bit more about the cylinder, and then you're going to gather some data to see if you can put yourself on that cylinder. Where am I? Where's my
Oh,
nervous system right now?
yeah.
Oh, it's at a 4. It's at a 8. Wow, what's going on? Oh, I had that meeting, and the boss
Yeah.
is always talking about how we're not meeting goals. And even though, I feel like I'm doing okay, but I feel like it's my responsibility and that I've failed. Or maybe it's this time of day, or maybe it's I'm around that person,
Yeah.
or certain things that we start to notice, to, noise and to lights that are too bright and all these kinds of things.
Mhm. Mhm.
By doing these check-ins, and there's actually a checklist, a
Okay.
table where you can record a little bit of information, including
Mhm.
what was I thinking? Because our thoughts are intimately involved here, right? If I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I stuttered in that podcast, and now everyone is going to think I'm dumb and will never, pay any
Right.
attention to my work, or whatever
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, wow, I can see the impact of that thought pattern on my nervous system. And so we start to really understand what the different things that we encounter every day, or what our adaptations are, how they're
Right.
reflected in our nervous system patterns. And then slowly we start to bring in some tools, and we start to notice, what does it feel like when I do this? And there's a lot of nuance there, right? Because sometimes it's not safe to go into the body and to notice things. The
Yeah.
reason why many of us are just heads walking around on a pile of bones is because that was an adaptation to cut off from our
Yeah.
body. It was certainly one that I did. I didn't want
Yeah.
anything to do with
Yeah.
my body.
Same.
Yeah,
Same. And to
exactly.
be able to realize that it's healthy and good to feel and be in your body and know, what's helpful. I loved that you said that the goal is not to calm the system, but to know the system.
Yeah.
Because what I get when you say that is someone who knows their system and is not afraid of it is somebody who's got a lot of confidence that they know who they are, where they are, and believe that they have the ability to address what could
Yeah.
come next.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so that's so beautiful. So perfectly said. The way I think of it is knowing your system and being able to respond to it is like having this beautiful, loving resource beside you every
Yes.
moment that is 100% there for you 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted. That is attuned
Yeah.
caregiving at its finest. And that's
Yeah.
what we missed out
100%.
on. And that's what we can now provide to ourselves. And now, like, I know that there's nothing that could happen to me that I wouldn't have at least the resources to support myself through. Doesn't mean I don't
Yeah.
get sad. It doesn't mean I don't go, get off, the track and all the things,
Right.
but there's somebody right here. And she
Yeah.
knows me. She cares about me. She loves me.
Yeah.
She knows what I need, and she can provide it. And it's a
Mhm.
whole different life. And
That's a
that's what we're
whole
working
different
to
life.
develop. Yeah.
And I love that because if by your 50s you are beginning to let go of some of the old stories and beliefs that led you into overwhelm and
Mhm.
that are allowing you to come back and get in touch with your operating system and what helps you and works for you and what builds your confidence, you still just statistically have about 30 years left, at least, right? Just on average, right? That's a lot of powerful time to create wonderful, cool, quality of life things that you probably always wanted, but didn't feel that you could when you were younger. So part of what I love about what you're saying is this is this is a bump set spike to what really is meaningful to you, you
Yes,
know?
yes, yes. Quality and I think longevity too, because we know
Yes.
that so many of the diseases that we, many women face in
Mhm.
older years are because we were living inauthentic lives. The work of
Yes.
Gabor Mate, when the body says no, and all
Yeah.
the whole body of research around what happens when we're
Yeah.
constantly suppressing ourselves. Plus, our nervous system plays a huge role in our health,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And a well-regulated nervous system is a healthy system. And so
Amen.
it's important to extend those years. But as you said, even and I think more importantly, to make those years wonderful years.
Yeah. I mean, this could really be, and I do believe this. This is what Butterfly Days teaches is that this is the period when you have most to give that's matured and is,
Yeah.
is ripe and beautiful and that probably the most helpful that you could do. And I love that what you're teaching is to bring us back into our own power in a really organic way within the body
Hmm.
because the whole a lot of what I talk about is that you are not your body. You are in your body. So being able to feel safe in that space and to um, know that everything's working together. Your body and your heart, mind, soul can come together to drive that engine to live the life that you want to create. A lot of what you're teaching is exciting to me because I hear you saying, with some of the things that I have learned and that I can teach you and learned and studied, right?
Hmm.
I can teach you how to come back into your own power,
Yeah.
how to begin to operate and exist in a stronger, healthier, more confident, empowered way than you may have been doing earlier in your life. And with that, go create.
Yeah.
Go do something that makes us all so thrilled by you.
Yeah.
Because I think we all have it in us to do something beautiful and wonderful, whether it's gardening or finding a cure for cancer, which if you have the cure for cancer, could you step up now? Um, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's so beautiful. So if we're like, I'm on the Lori Montry train and I want to find her, learn more about her, know what she does. Tell me, where can I find you? You're on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
Facebook,
I'm
where?
I'm on all the platforms of my with my name, Lori Montry.
Okay.
I also have a YouTube channel, which is just part of my mission to really bring nervous system education
I
in that
love
way that
this.
we've been talking about, as opposed to
Yeah.
the latest hack. And what I'd really love to share with your audience, though, is the introduction to the book "You're Not the Problem."
Mm,
Because it really, encapsulate everything that we talked about here today as far as like, how we adapt and what is the path to adapt again, this time
yeah.
towards our wholeness and our authenticity. And so being able to share that would be very
Yeah.
valuable.
So I love this that you're offering us. If we go to your website, LoriMontry.com, that's
Yeah.
LoriMontry.com, that we can get an overview that we could read and begin to understand more of the fine detail of what you're saying.
Yeah, I've also got some somatic exercises there,
Oh,
that you can start to
freebies.
try on and start to build your own tool belt, and a bunch of resources, including with the weight of trauma masterclass, the weight,
Oh,
around emotional eating, and
yeah.
so there's a lot there that we can start to explore and really start to understand what does that journey look like to come back home to the wisdom that's inside using your nervous system as the compass.
Yeah. I was looking at your website this morning actually, and I was noticing that you do have several programs that I think look fantastic, specific for people who are looking to find ways to understand themselves and to have better, well, to be able to accomplish what they want to more, whether it's
Yeah.
about eating or people pleasing or whatever. But you have some really wonderful stuff, and I think your prices are pretty darn good too, in full disclosure.
Yeah, that's important to me. It really is. It's
Yeah.
part of my model. I don't want to help only a select group of people, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, I
yeah.
think that you are. And that, Lori, you're saying some really important things that are not being said in the main right now. And I think you're calling us, especially us women in midlife, into really a rich, important place to understand our bodies, ourselves, our stories, and where they've led us to in our nervous system so that we can figure out slowly but surely in a really strong, grounded way to gain the confidence to be able to come back into the best of who we are and what our
Mm.
potential is, not by some external measure,
Uh-huh.
but by being us, the truest of what's right for us or what's best or what's most beautiful. And I just think every day you're getting up and you're encouraging women towards that place. And what beautiful and amazing work. And I hope you know, Lori Montry, I am rooting for you every day to be able to touch more and more women because your message is beautiful, it's important, and I just I want Butterfly Days to amplify that out for you because more of us need the relief that you're able to talk about and to explain really well. Thank you so much that you would come and share with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I just really received that. It was such a lovely reflection from me. Yes, that is exactly what this work is about. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be part of this conversation and this space that you've created for all of us. I told you as we were starting, I am an avid listener now and love all the
Yay.
conversations. So thank you for creating this space for us and all the beautiful things that you do.
Yeah, that is incredible. So LoriMontry.com, go there. Her new book will be out by the time this episode airs, and you'll be able to actually read for yourself and begin to come more strongly into your own power. I think that's such a beautiful thing to be able to come into your own
Mm.
power with a confidence and a calmness that maybe you didn't have earlier in life, but you can get it now. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next week. I'm so grateful you listened to this episode. I hope it was a real value to you. If there's a sister in your life who needs this message, please share it, just like women have done to lift each other up over the centuries and across cultures. Women lifting each other is so important. It's why I do this work. And to avoid FOMO and keep up leveling your own life, make sure you don't miss the next episode. You may be losing hormones, but your life has given you powerful perspective. And I believe you have something to give that no one else does, that the world needs. So remember, I'm rooting for you. Let's go.